Carrie, Kamala's mother once said, don't let people tell you who you are. Rather, be the one to tell people who you are. Hello everybody, and welcome to Naomi's all-inclusive world, where today we get to have a conversation with Venus Kyengo, who will get to help us understand what happens when I'm at that place where I feel like everything has stopped. Does that mean I have forgotten myself? Can I still tell someone about myself? And then what happens when I need to be the very person who is explaining what I'm going through to the other person, in this case, a counselor. Karibu. Venus, help society understand what exactly is mental wellness. Is that like another sickness? Is that like another disease that if I learn that I have, I need to be admitted?
So thank you so much, Naomi, for having me. Yeah, I'm really, really humbled to be here. And congratulations on your channel. I like what you're doing. And I think you're part of this, move of creating a society that we want to see in terms of mental wellness. And when we talk about mental wellness, what exactly do we mean? We all, at one point or the other, have walked into a doctor's room, to be checked. We had issues. Maybe you're having a cough, you're having a headache that was persistent, underlying persistent, because sometimes you can have a normal headache that will go, maybe at the verge of just taking, a pill, it will just disappear. You don't need to take that pill. But when this headache becomes persistent, then it means that you need medical attention. So when we talk about mental wellness, besides the issue of even walking into a doctor's, a room, there's also going to the gym to keep yourself fit. So I want to look at this from both perspectives. Sometimes in life, we are bombarded by things that might be traumatic, might change how we view things in life. And because of that, we might go into bouts of stress, depression, anxiety, okay? On the flip side, we might have been exposed in our earlier years, to traumatic stuff that have never left our mind. And as we continue on the path of life, you realize that those things that are stored in our mindset are affecting how we look at things, how we behave towards people. Now, when you have such symptoms, that is the right time to go in for what we call mental wellness therapy. And that is where a therapist comes in. When someone walks into the room with issues, they're not coming to have conversations, to gossip. Right. They're looking for answers for things that are stressing them. So it is very, very critical that people get to realize that you cannot have a perfectly neat life. And when those occasions arise where you're going into, stress, you're having anxiety, you're having doubts about how you're operating, when it comes to your mindset, then that is the correct time to go in for therapy. Now, Naomi, there's this stigma about, going in for mental wellness check or therapy, and it arises from the fact that we feel by going into a counseling room, our egos are being dented. There's something that we are telling the world, that we are weak, that we are not able to handle things the way we should, and especially when it comes to the male gender, and without, being extremely discriminative, but this is something that I have realized, even as I have walked this journey of being a therapist. A lot of men don't like going in for therapy. They'd rather commit suicide. That is a sad thing, than going to sit down with a counselor and telling them what is actually hurting them. And I think it's a high time, and thanks to you for also, pushing this, it's a high time that people realize that anyone who walks into a counseling room is the strongest. Right. Okay? It says a lot about you, that you can allow yourself to be vulnerable for purposes of personal growth.
Is counseling the same as rehabilitation? Say if I was taken for rehab, well, do I expect to like go through some counseling sessions or to just take the tabs or the meds?
People have very different perspectives about these two things. So I've been able to define mental wellness, the act of, seeking mental wellness. It's going into the counseling room. But away from that, we have the rehabilitation centers. And rehabilitation center doesn't mean that it is necessarily a drug, and substance use rehabilitation centers. We actually have rehabilitation centers for kids who have come from difficult homes, who have issues, and they need a center where they go through a sort of mindset. And I work with a lot of those. You find that probably a child was picked out from the streets and they're brought to this home that is, has workers who have been trained, social workers who have been trained to help them to change, how they look at life in terms of perception. For example, a child who's been living in the street has no problem with sniffing glue, has no problem with stealing things from people, because he has been brought up in such hard situations, conditions, and he feels that is how he has, life should happen.
Right, that's their normal.
That is their normal.
Yes.
But when they're brought into a rehabilitation home, they get to realize that, wow, I was actually thinking of, seeing life from a very, very different dimension. And they're able to be restructured and then reintegrated back to the system. Okay? There's the drug and substance use rehabilitation centers where we find addicts.
Right.
And addiction spreads across the board. The two or three areas of challenge when it comes to addiction are nomophobia, which I think all of us are suffering from. That is the use of gadgets. We are always on the gadgets, and in the world of today, we have to do everything. Basically, you just have to have a phone or a laptop.
Yes.
Then there's pornography. I hate to say that, but of course, the use of gadgets gives our children, ourselves, access to so much.
Right.
And the third one is drugs and alcohol. And all these things, when you think about it, are sort of like, intertwined. And the fourth one would be gambling, because, now it's also, you just need a phone.
Right.
And sometimes when it gets to a point where this thing is controlling how you see life, then there's a problem. If there's Naomi A and there's Naomi B, or Venus A and Venus B is a very different person from Venus A, because there's an enabling thing, there's a trigger, then there goes the problem. When you wake up and you spend out of a given day 10 hours on a phone, that is addiction. When alcohol controls you such that you cannot do anything, without taking this alcohol, there goes a problem. When you cannot go a day without watching a pornography movie, then there goes addiction. So when you get to these spaces and places where an external thing is controlling who you are, then you need to go into a rehabilitation center. And that is just basically moving from the environment that enables you. It could be your neighbor is the one who supplies you alcohol. It could be that, yes, you don't want to get out of this addiction, but that phone is your enabler and you cannot do without it. So what happens when you go into a rehabilitation center? All these things are taken away from you. So now you start engaging your mind. And in those rehabilitation centers, we also have therapists. So you're able to also deal with things, deal with your issues, get to the inner issue, that issue that makes you do things the way you do, but without the triggers.
Can someone self-cancel?
Self-motivate. You can try to motivate yourself, and motivation spreads across the board. You could do your coffee, you could jog, you could, motivation, is, it's different based on different personalities. But when it comes to counseling, self-counseling, you cannot. Number one, I would like to emphasize this. counselors are trained. They have the skills, they have the techniques, they have the theoretical knowledge on how to handle any issue that is brought to their attention based on theoretical foundation. Okay, we work with various models, but as Naomi, you don't have this knowledge. So there is no way you'll start asking yourself like, okay, fine, tell me, Naomi, what has brought you to this place? You know, and then you answer yourself. It is very difficult. And communication, Naomi, is a two-way thing. Solving issues as well also needs support, and counseling is part of the support that we give when people are trying to either go past their barriers, especially when you're feeling stagnated, or when people are trying to deal with their personality disorders, with their stress, what I talked about, you know, all these things that makes us not be able to function within the normal spectrum of a human being.
Would you say we have so many self-appointed counselors, which then doesn't make the situations better?
Well, I wouldn't want to put it that way, Naomi, because in life and in every given profession, there are those who get qualified by their experience. There are those who get qualified by the knowledge that they hold. They have done studies, they have, you know, gone through school, and they are particularly very qualified for this thing, okay? And there are those who are there to try it out, okay? But I would like to throw it back to you. When you're talking about, you know, being self-qualified, I would then ask you, what is it then you're looking for? Because if you want the best, if you want to be a giant, you walk with the giants. So if you want your issues solved in the proper way, then you walk into a proper counselor's office. If you're looking for feedback based on experience, where someone has actually gone before you and they have walked that journey and they know what it is like, then I would call it more of mentorship, but then also with a little bit of counseling, because yes, they have the technique, they have walked that journey before you, so they'd be able to give you directives based on their own experiences. So when you're looking at therapy, if you want the best, then walk into a counseling room. But if you also want, you know, someone to hold your hand through the experience, then I would call it more of mentorship or life coach. And I don't want to nullify the fact that some of us, you know, have also been, you know, we have stood on some of these people's shoulders. You know, people who have, like our mothers. There's what we call community counseling, you know, where you sit in a community and you talk about issues, and through experiences, you're able to pick one or two things. So that brings in the dimension of experience, and it doesn't have to be that, you know, I went to school for this. I'll just talk from an, you know, that experience. And this happens mostly even in rehabilitation centers, where everyone is vulnerable and they accept that we are all alcoholics, we are all addicts. But this has been my journey. I started because I was raped. I started drinking because I had issues at home. I started doing this because of 1, 2, 3 things. And then as that person talks, you're picking up and you're saying, my God, am I dreaming? But this is the same thing, you know? So that is a very powerful tool, you know, learning from other people. But if I was to be asked, you know, for an opinion, I would say walk in to that, you know, specialized, let me underline specialized, because we all have different areas of specialities. So walk into that area of, you know, speciality that you're looking for. Is it about trauma? There are counselors who are trained to deal with trauma. Is it about drug use? There are those counselors who are trained to do that. Don't get mixed up there in the middle and just go to a general person when you're looking for a specific. It's true.
So really we need to hear that mothers, young wives, you know, children, families with children or spouses who are dealing with a disability or a condition, let's find the right counselors.
Exactly.
That is part of dealing with the
situation.
And not just everybody. And like we say in the world of those living with disabilities, we could be dealing with the same case. Our stories are very unique.
Very, very unique. I agree. And Naomi, just to add on to what you said, it's really sad to hear that people can, you know, end up committing suicide for going in for the wrong treatment. And that's why I have really, you know, emphasized on going to that, you know, counselor who is best suited to deal with your issue. And, you know, one thing that comes out of looking, you know, going into quack therapy rooms, is you end up having personality disorders. Because remember, at the end of the day, this person is not really qualified. So they're trying to deal with your issues, but from a point of not having any knowledge. So the solutions that they may suggest to you, or, you know, what ends up coming out of that therapy is you walk out now being on a dysfunctional, you know, kind of spectrum, as opposed to the normal, you know, operational systems of a human mind. So personality, we all have, ideally we all have 5 personality disorders, according to, you know, the scientific theories. And it could be as little as we are having a conversation and you just miss your mind thought process, and you like, that already is also considered a personality disorder. Okay, there are those other extreme, like, you know, anorexia, you know. And when you talk about personality disorder, it also brings in the issue of disability. Of course, a disorder is the same thing equal to a disability, you know. But I liked what you said at the beginning, that no one should tell you who you are. Okay, none of us is perfect. So that means that all of us are disabled in one way or the other. And I think I told you my story about my dad, who is visually handicapped, has never seen me, has never seen any of his children. But I always like to say that God put me under his feet so that I could see the world for him, that I could have the confidence and execute what he was not able to do. He pushed himself to higher levels of education. He did what any other ordinary person would not do. And what I came to realize later is he had mental stamina. So we can't say that our limbs, you know, we have no excuse, you know, of having a disability. The first thing that disables us is our mindset. I have seen people who are not complete, but the kind of confidence they have, the things that they are doing with their lives is supernaturally amazing. So it is about what you tell yourself. And I would like to encourage people, don't be looking out for people to tell you who you are. The world is full of hate, and I mean hate. In fact, in any given, you know, social cycle, I always tell people 90% are your enemies. Despite the niceries they give you, in their hearts, if you could open their hearts, they are very, very jealous. In fact, one of the, you know, most, can I say, the popular disorders is obsessive compulsive jealousy disorder. Yes, an extreme of jealousy where someone will be your follower. They will just be monitoring you, but they're very interested, not because they're cheering you on. It's because they hate you so much that they want to know what is happening in your world. They will never give you feedback. They will, you know, it's just the hatred that drives them. But the good thing about this thing is that they end up really killing themselves, you know, mentally. It kills them more than they think that they are doing it to you. So what I want to emphasize is self-awareness. Whether you're living with a disability, self-awareness remains very key. Self-awareness works with your self-esteem. When you know yourself too well, your confidence levels are high. It's not about you coming and telling me, Venus, this is how you, I tell you, no, that is not me. This is Venus, and I will bring out all my values. It's about knowing yourself too well that nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop you. Having goals that you work on, you know, you have things, you have your vision board, you know, you're working with, you have a navigational map. And this navigational map gives you cues where you need to stop, walk into a counseling room, de-stress, detox mentally, and continue. Because sometimes we run out of fuel, isn't it? Sometimes we run out of that mental fuel. Sometimes we fight, you know, or we find so much opposition that it actually discourages. We need someone to motivate us. So as we go through journey, where there's a curve, know what to do. Where there's a T-junction, know which side to take. Because when you have good support system, and starting from that, you know, therapeutic place, I'm telling you, nothing will discourage you.
Would you say actually lack of proper counseling, proper mental counseling awareness can actually lead to a disability?
Absolutely. And I want to look at it from two different dimensions. When you talk about being counseled from an experience, a place of experience, remember, every human being is unique. You have your own personality traits, you have your temperament, traits. That person who's speaking to you handled an issue based on their personality, based on that particular environment that they were placed. It may not be casting stone that it is a duplicate of yours. So when you go to them and they tell you, they try to counsel you from an experiential kind of place, it is for you to know what to filter. You need to decant and see, this will work for my environment, this will work for my personality, and take what you need and leave what you don't need. All right? Now, moving on from the, professional part of, this, we normally use models, what we call theoretical frameworks that help us to navigate through your issue. When you go to someone who is not well trained, most probably they will not apply the right kind of framework that is needed for your issue. So you will end up getting into wrong solutions, and that can lead to a disability. Now let me give you a good example. And I want to use the example that you came up with about the lady who had a miscarriage. It's unfortunate that she had to take her life, but I believe if she had the right support, she wouldn't have gotten there. Now let's look at from a point of someone who was advising her from a point of experience. And I will use the African mindset. Okay, I have had a miscarriage. Oh my God. What do you mean? Do you know, I realized that my issue was because I was cursed. There was some black magic involved.
Right.
Why don't you go and see a witch doctor?
Right.
Okay? So already there's a thought, a dysfunctional thought somehow introduced to your mindset.
Right.
So anytime anything bad happens to you, your mind takes you back to that statement. It is because there's some black magic. Anything that happens from that. And unfortunately, I have seen people go walk into, I have had even clients come and confess and tell me, I've gone to a witch doctor and this is what and you end up taking poison and whatever, and you lose your life. Because it's from a place, this is being handled from a place of experience. And maybe your culture does not even promote that kind of mindset, okay? So that ends up being a misfortune for you, because already you go into a mental incapacitation. All right? There's a way your mind is fixated on this thing called black magic. When you walk into a professional, and you talk about issues, they use a framework. So they will tell you, okay, I do realize that, you're going through trauma because of the loss of this child that you really, you're looking forward to have. But first of all, you need to self-care.
Right.
Tell me how you feel. So we deal with your inner mind. What is there? What I'm striving is to remove the pains and the hurt that is in the unconscious mind and bring it to our attention, where you say, I feel hurt. I feel disappointed. I feel let down. I feel like I can just take my life. When you say that, that already in itself is a red flag. So I will dig in a little bit deeper to find out, are you from a suicidal family? Tell me about your history. So it's small steps of trying to dig a little bit of you and getting to the root of the problem. It could be, yes, you went through this miscarriage, but that is just not the issue. You were abused when you were a child. You never got the kind of love that you needed, and that affects you. Just the fact that you have also miscarried, has added onto this injury, saying that even God himself does not love you because he has let you lose this thing that you're looking forward to having. So that brings in now the idea of, it is what you want. If you want lasting solutions, go to that place where you know you are guaranteed. And I want to emphasize this. Never be afraid to ask for certification, okay? One of the things that I've learned to do is to ask, how qualified are you? You know, do you have anything on your wall? If I get into an office, I'm looking for that certificate. What does it say about you? We have, reviews. Check out. This Naomi, she's a beautiful lady and I like what she's doing. How are her reviews? That will give you more. They'll give you hints as to how you what to expect, about this, service that you're looking for. So one thing that I'd like to emphasize, even as you deal with, counselors, ask people around, what do you think about Venus? What do you think about, yes, that should be able to give you the hint of either you go ahead with, seeing that person, or you look for other referrals.
From your experience, both probably what you've academically read and maybe come across, would you say a family would be helping itself if it took time to talk to someone, say if one of their members acquired a disability? Because again, like we say, not all of them are acquired at birth. Say one of the children or even the spouse ends up acquiring a disability through an accident, through sickness or something like that. And so the entire family needs now to adjust to now having someone who needs that extra help in the house. Would you say it would help if they had someone, like orient them or just talk to them, or should they just roll with it?
Absolutely. In any social system, we have the microsystem. And the microsystem, involves the family because it is the inner part of your support system. Outside that, we have the mesosystem and so forth and so forth. So any family, and I want to emphasize that families should also make it a routine to walk into therapy rooms, especially in situations whereby they are not able to sort situations within the confines of their homes. Case in point, a couple that is going through challenges. Now, the mentality of one spouse is like, we cannot go to a counseling room because we'll be exposing ourselves, okay? The other partner might be willing, but the bottom line is we are not able to sort out this issue. Then again, it comes to the issue of, do we go to someone who just is going to advise us from an experience, or do we walk into this place where there's a lot of professionalism and guarantee that we will get solutions to these issues that we are trying to face? Now, any counselor, and I want to emphasize this, does not take sides. We are neutral parties. We never take sides at any one given time. Our work is to listen to the issues and bring in the expertise, okay? We also don't give solutions. What we do is give you skills that will help you sort out issues, not only for that time, but even in the future. If you used to fight about, personality issues, once you understand that you're not in a relationship to change that person, you're there to grow as you maybe pray for the other person, because God is the one who changes people. Then you learn to be more accommodative to that person. You have already been empowered in that field. So at the end of the day, families that have issues and have someone who has a disability, and remember I said all of us have a level of disability, should learn to, seek also, support from a therapist. Why? There's something called burnout. Okay? You notice that if you have a special child, just handling them can really, drain you energy-wise, because of course a lot is required of you in terms of the attention you give to that child, and based on their kind of disability. So at that point where you feel drained, that point where you feel unmotivated, demotivated to deal with this child of yours, that is the point to go to a counselor and tell them, listen, I don't mind the fact that I have this special child, this disabled child, but I no longer feel like I'm able to handle them. And there and then I'll be able to pick out this is an issue of burnout. So I'll recommend, you know, that maybe you take time out, get another relative come. So what you do is getting empowered. And as you do this, in fact, you adapt. Now you're able to get out the solutions without even going to a counselor. But at the starting point, when you realize your mentality is being affected, that is the right time to go in for therapy. We have blended families, we have different types of families, and of course, each family type comes with very different challenges. Yes, what I'd like to emphasize is, let us make it a habit. I have looked for other counselors to come and counsel my own children, okay? I believe in mentorship. I believe in counseling so much. I never got the opportunity to know how powerful counseling can be. But now that I'm in that space, and because of what we call transference, counter-transference, and of course, knowing that this is a relative, then I am able to refer my children, whenever they don't want even to hear from me, I will refer them to another counselor. And it doesn't really bother me what my friend may say, what my relative may say. You see, part of self-growth is realizing no one has power over you. You have the controls.
Thank you very much, Venus. Probably that parting shot you would like to put out there, and especially to our society, our Kenyan society, because we are not, and this is just an observation, we are not the quickest to look for help, at least not to professionals, leave alone now like the men we are talking about. I know of a number of relatives who, even by the time they are walking to a medical hospital, like they're really in pain.
Yes.
And probably the signal started way ago. So again, just probably that word you would throw out there to tell people that don't wait until it's late. And again, just emphasize on what you said earlier, that you seeking help actually makes you the strongest.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you so much, Naomi. One thing that I would want to end this conversation with is emphasize that mental wellness is something that should be practiced without any prejudice, without any stigmatization, without any fear. I want to speak to anyone who might be watching this video. Please refer, even if it's not you, refer people. Let's talk about this thing. Let us preach this gospel of mental wellness. For those guys who run, organizations, make it, such a normal thing for your staff to walk into your, and just tell you, I feel I need to go for counseling. Because what we do, it is like we hide these things. We want to, yes, I'm going for counseling, but it is hidden, Let us make it part and practice of our organization. Let us make it part and practice of our day-to-day living. Let us make it part and practice of our churches, our spiritual growth, because we all need it. Pastors also get burnout, okay? Employers get burnout. We are all human beings. That is a common factor that we have. And we run out of fuel. So it is very, very paramount that we make it a routine, at least in every 3 months. Walk into account, even if you feel you're okay, just walk out, have yourself checked. I like the fact that people do annual checks.
Right.
We should have that kind of mentality. Let me do my biannual mental check, whereby I walk in and I ask the therapist, I've been thinking and feeling like this. Do you think it is okay? Have yourself checked. Yes. So mental wellness is actually the way to go. In today's world, with all these gadgets, with the kind of fast living that we are in, you need to slow down and allow your mind to process things. And by allowing your mind to process things, it means that you go into that space where you can also get therapeutic services.
Please look out for Venus Kyengo on Mynspa, where she gets to dive deeper into matters mental wellness and just how to keep fitting in society. So again, Venus Kyengo on Mynspa. Thank you everyone for your time. And again, like I keep saying, if you haven't subscribed yet, remember to hit that subscribe button and drop me a comment. It always means a lot when I read from you. And let's keep this wheel moving. Bye.